Welcome back everyone to the Blender Creator course, Stylized 3D Models, and this is where we left it off. Alright, so hopefully you watched that video on Asset Manager. Now what we can do is we can come up to the top, this little plus here, click the plus, and just put it on something like animation. It doesn't matter which one you're going to pick, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the name of this, and we're going to call it Asset Manager. So Asset Manager. Now you will notice that in this Asset Manager, my Blender is 3.63. This is just for actually putting our assets in. It's not what we're going to be using. So it doesn't matter which version of Blender you're going to be using for your Asset Manager, as long as it's above Blender 3.1. I think that's when they brought in the Asset Manager. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this top corner here over to the left hand side. Now it's important that you get that little cursor there, and then you move it over to the right hand side like so, and then you'll have the whole of the viewport in this top part. The next thing I want to do is I want to change this. At the moment we've got our timeline laid out here. We don't really want that. What we want to do is click down on this down arrow here, go over to the right hand side, and you'll see one that says Asset Manager. Now you're greeted at the moment with these assets. These are the inbuilt assets in Blender. We're not really interested in those. What we need to do is create our own. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one. So if I come to, let's just close that up, click the plus button like so, and I think, does it put another one in there? I'm going to click on this down arrow. I'm going to put it on current file instead. Then I'm going to click plus, and now there we go, we've actually got one in here. Let's call this materials first. So materials, like so, and you'll see at the moment it has a little star in there, and that's simply because we haven't saved out. So if we save now, that hopefully should disappear, which it does. Let's put this back on textures then so we can see what we're doing. Now at the moment we have all of these textures, and we need to put those into materials so that when we come to another blend file, it's easy to actually find what we're actually looking for. So at the moment we don't want geometry nodes, we don't want plants, and we don't want grass into materials. We just want materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the wall. I'm going to then go over to the right hand side where the material panel is, which is this button here, and then we can see our wall is here. If I right click this, we can actually mark this as an asset, and now you won't see anything happening, but if you go to unassigned, we've actually got our wall. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go to each of these, right click them, mark as asset, and you'll see now they start popping in here. Now we don't want to right click on here and mark as asset, because what that'll do is it'll actually put this this geometry in there. That's not what we want. We won't be able to drag and drop these materials onto anything that we want. In other words, now if I drag and drop this onto here, you'll see it actually changes the material, which is exactly what we want. So when we're actually creating planks of wood or walls, we want to just be able to drag and drop this material onto the actual asset. All right, the one thing that you need to understand though is if you want to change an asset or material, it's better to change it in the main file. So this is the file where they actually come from. We want to change that from here. Let's say we want to change the wood direction. We want to change that within this file, so then it updates to our file within our Blender project. So I'm going to now come down to each of these, and I'm just going to mark as asset on each of these, and you'll also notice that they come in really beautiful and named pretty much, although I think this one is called, let's have a look, planks. I'm just wondering which one's named light wood material. So we've got main wood material. I'm wondering if I can actually change the name of that. So let's see. Yeah, for some reason this main wood has come in at 003. I actually don't know why it's coming at that, but never mind. Okay, let's work our way down. So I'm going to come to this one now. Right click, mark as asset. And please do the same as what I'm doing here so that you've got them all. And by doing this, you'll actually understand how the Asset Manager is going to work. So right click, mark as asset, right click, mark as asset. All right, so now we've got all of these assets in there. I want to grab all of them. So grab one, shift click the other, and I want to drop them into materials. So now we have nothing on unassigned. We have it all in materials. So now you can see that if you create more materials, drag them into this blend file, and then you can actually create more of these materials in here. All right, so the next one I want to do is I want to make a new one then. So I'm going to click the plus. I'm going to call this reference. Now with the reference, you can actually put in things like our human OBJ, which is used to show us scale. You can put in things like world lighting, for instance. So you might have a HDRI map. You might have a sky texture in there that you really like and you want to use over and over again. This is how you can do it. Now with our guy here, what we want to do is want to come over to the right hand side. Let's pull this down a little bit. Let's press the dot button to see where he is. And here he is. Now what I can do now is I can right click, come down, mark as asset. Now he won't actually appear here, of course, because he's not in reference, but he will appear in here. So here he is. Let's bring him and drop him in to our reference, and let's go to file and save out. Now the thing is as well, at the moment, I think if I viewed him like this, so let's just delete him. So I can come in, I can clear the asset like so. And then what I can do is I can come in again, right click, mark as asset. Let's see if he's coming any better. No, he's not. So what I'll do is I'll clear asset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control A, all transforms, right click, set origin to geometry. And then I'm going to go over, right click, mark as asset. And now you can see that he's stood up really nicely and we can see much easier than we could before. Now let's left click and drag him and put him in our reference. Let's come up to file and save that out. All right, now the best thing about the asset manager is not only can you use objects, but you can also use geometry node, which makes it really handy. Now let's come in and hide our floor. So I'm going to press H to hide our floor out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do them all together. So I'm going to grab all of my grass. I'm going to grab one of them just so it's highlighted in yellow. And then I'm going to press Control A, all transforms, right click, set origin to geometry. And the reason I'm going to do that is because what that's doing is it's telling Blender, hey, all of these transforms have been reset. In other words, if we said, we built a cube and from that cube we built a blade of grass, Blender will still think that it's dealing with a cube. So by resetting all the transformations, Blender understands that that cube has changed into a piece of grass. Now that is a very rudimentary explanation, but that's basically what's going on. Now if I press 1 on the number pad now to get all of these, the same view, and then I come over to the right hand side, with them all selected, I can press right click, mark as asset, and there they all are, all of our pieces of grass, and they're all stood out really nicely, exactly the way we want them. Now what I want to do is I want to come over here, I'm going to put this down as plants. In fact, I'll call it foliage. I think that'll be a better name for it. And then I'll go to unassigned. I'm going to grab all of these. I'm going to drag them across and drop them into foliage like so. Let's go to file, save out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the plant. So I want to grab all of these like so, Control A, all transforms, and you'll see that that messes them all up. So we can't set all the transforms on these. Sometimes that does happen with geometry nodes, so just be aware of that. What I'm going to do is though, I'm still going to press 1 on the number pad, and I'm going to go over to the right hand side. I'm going to press the little dot button again, and here they all are. Now let's right click and mark as assets. It's going to take a little bit of time to do that because there's a lot of assets here, and now if we go to unassigned, we'll end up with all of these assets. Now the thing is with the geometry node, you do need to keep the parts that are making up the assets. So you can see here, for instance, this one is a geometry node and it relies upon all of these parts to make this geometry node. So we need to keep all of these parts in the same file. The same thing with the ivy, you'll see that the stem of the ivy is actually a geometry node, but the actual leaves are made up from this object here. So we need to keep these in the same file. Now we've got this, let's come in and grab all of these. And then what we're going to do is, in fact, we need to make another one. So we'll call this plants geometry node. Geometry nodes. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to unassigned. I'm going to grab all these and drop them into plants geometry nodes like so. Now finally we've got our main geometry nodes. Now it's up to you whether you split these off. I'm just simply going to call them geometry nodes. So I'm going to double click this. Nodes. like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all three of these. I'm going to press 1 on the number pad, dot to go over the right hand side, and I'm going to find these parts. Where are they? Here they are. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to mark as asset. All right, let's now go to unassigned. Here are the chains, planks and roof, and you will notice that they've actually got no materials on them. And the reason is generally with geometry nodes, they don't actually come through with all the textures and materials on. Now, when I pull this out though, you will see when I pull this out on another file, for instance, it will come in with the materials on. So don't worry if it's gray is what I'm saying. All right, let's delete that out of the way. What I'm going to do is now, I'm going to put these under geometry node. So drag, drop, there's the 3 in there. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this out. So file and save. All right, so that's pretty much done. So what we're going to do on the next lesson is I'm going to open up the new Blender for file where we're actually going to start our gray box. I'm going to show you actually how we can actually bring these in. So in other words, how do we make these usable in the new blend file? All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.